Hi everyone, so today we are making a Japanese cotton cheesecake that will minimize the shrinkage of the cake when it pulls out the oven.
The first thing that we are going to need is cream cheese. You can use any brand and any form of cream cheese you want, but be sure to use the full fat one. The second thing we are going to need is milk. Next thing we will need is butter. I'm using room temperature butter, unsalted. And we will need sugar, flour and cornstarch, and 6 eggs. That's gonna be separated. And let's get started. So we have a clean bowl here, and I am going to add the cream cheese and the milk to this bowl. And we are going to melt the cream cheese under a double boiler. So basically I just have a pot of hot water and I just sit this like on top of the hot water so it will melt. Or you can just put this and the milk in a small saucepan and just melt it. But you want to keep an eye on it so it will not burn. So the double boiler method will just prevent you from burning your cream cheese. And just transfer this to the bowl. I want to make sure that this is room temperature first so it will not take so long to melt. So I'm just going to take this and set it on top of the hot water that I just prepared at first and wait until this thing melts. So it should look like this after it's melted. I just kind of stir it while it was on top of the hot water and kind of assist the process so it will speed up the process. For the cream cheese to melt, so while this thing is still hot, you want to quickly add in your butter and stir that in. So after the butter has been combined, it should take about 3 to 4 minutes, not very long because the cheese mixture is still hot. So it will help melt the butter really easily. And just set this aside and we will work with the egg yolks. I am going to separate 6 eggs and I'm going to put egg yolks in this bowl and egg whites in this stainless steel bowl. And I am going to manually whisk these up, both of these, but I'm going to do them at a separate time because you can't do both things at the same time. And then let's get started with that. Oh gosh, I just forgot that I should have put the egg whites into the stainless steel bowl and I just... Okay, backtrack. Let's pour this back into this bowl and I just dropped my egg yolk and thank God that it did not break. Okay, I'm going to try to save this by quickly pushing it back to the bowl and clean up the mess I just made. That was embarrassing. So I'm going to continue separating my eggs and I'm going to come back, okay? Okay, this time, I know the egg whites should go to the stainless steel bowl, not the glass one. I'm just gonna set the egg whites aside right now because you want to whip your egg whites when your egg whites are in room temperature and they will whip up more beautifully. Okay, so I set that aside and we're gonna work with it. With our egg yolks, I am going to add in about 40 grams of your sugar. I'm just gonna eyeball it. So that looks like 40 grams to me. And I'm going to just use a balloon whisk and mix this up. So this is what I got. I don't know if you can see clearly because the lighting is not that good. It should be semi-thick and you should get this like lemony color. And after we are done with that, wash your balloon whisk. That's the first thing I'm going to do first, and I'm going to come back with a spatula later because we need the balloon whisk to whisk up our egg whites later. And make sure if you are manually whisking this, be sure everything is clean before whipping your meringue because any trace of grease will mess up your meringue. And I'm going to come back with a clean whisk and a spatula.
So we have our beat up egg yolks and our chilled, semi-warm cheese mixture. Ooh, got some on my hand. Just gonna scrape off the side and combine the two together. It doesn't matter if you add the cheese first or add the yolk into the cheese or the cheese in the yolk, doesn't matter. Whatever's up to you. But I'm just gonna add the yolks to the cheese because this has a bigger bowl.
And kind of mix the two together. It's not that hard, right? So far, so good.
So after this is combined, we are going to sift in our flour. So I have some all-purpose flour and cornstarch here. You can use cake flour if you want, but I'm out of cake flour, so I'm just using all-purpose here. I'm just going to sift this in because we don't want any lumps of flour in our cake. Just sift this in. Just going to help it with my hand. And then combine the two together. So after the flour is mixed in, it should be kind of thick like this, but still a little bit runny. If you do see like little flour clumps in your batter, you can always use a sieve and sift this. No problem, okay? I'm just gonna check to see if I have any flour lumps. So far, I don't see any, but like, just to be on the safe side. Remember your dirty bowl that we have at first? I didn't wash it yet, so I'm just gonna use a sieve and sift the cheese mixture. Because all the work that we put in, I just don't want to ruin it just because of stupid flour lumps that are in our batter. So I have clean hands now. No oil, no yolks, no nothing. And with a clean balloon whisk. These are our room temperature egg whites. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to manually whisk this because it's going to rise better if I manually whisk this because I can control the peaks, the stages of egg whites that I want. You are aiming for soft peak, and I'll show you how soft peak looks like later. So I'm just going to gradually add in the sugar and whisk away. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a little bit of sugar to stabilize the egg whites and just whisk. So when you see like the egg whites are really bubbly, add in a little bit more sugar. And just gradually add in your sugar. So as you like gradually whisk this is about like 2 minutes of work. It will become really foamy. And you know what you're gonna do next? Continue whisking. This is gonna be pretty boring, so I'm just gonna fast forward this because you're not doing this in real life. I'm doing the work and you are watching. So when you are making this cake, I recommend hand whisking your egg whites, but if you don't want to go through the pain, use an electric mixer. It is so much easier. But I enjoy whisking my egg whites, so I am taking the hard route out. And I just kind of gradually add my sugar in. Nothing special, no tricks at all. So if you are doing this with a machine, you're probably done already. And I forgot to tell you guys, you should preheat your oven to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. You should always preheat your oven before baking because it is really important to have the correct temperature when you are baking cakes, especially baking temperature sensitive cakes. So this is about 10 minutes of whisking and it is almost ready. I can see that it's almost ready. It is white and shiny like this. But like when you pull it out from your meringue, pull your balloon whisk, it will make this like arch thingy. Can you see? This is called soft peak stage. You will know when you hit stiff peak, it's when it will just stand up. You get rid of the little, tiny little thing. I'm just trying to demonstrate here. You will get something like this. But when you get soft peak, totally different. I don't even know how to describe it. This meringue is so pretty. You can never get a meringue this pretty by using a machine. You can't even see any large bubbles in it. It's all small little bubbles that you whisk up. So that's why I rather go through the pain of whisking it myself than using a machine, even though I have like a stand mixer and an electric mixer. I'm using this mixer here, my hand mixer. So this is beautiful. I love it. We are going to mix the cream cheese mixture. It should be fully cooled now by the time we're done mixing our meringue. I am just going to fold the egg whites into the egg yolk mixture. I'm just add in about 1/3 of the egg whites that we made at first. And just slowly go from the side and mix it in. This is about all mixed. I'm going to add in the rest of my egg whites in. Just fold this in. Fold from, you want to scrape it from the bottom to the top. From the bottom of the bowl to the top of the mixture. And just keep doing this in a circular motion. And you should get a fully mixed batter that is really light and fluffy. Because you are not using any chemical reagents in there such as baking soda, baking powder, your egg whites are your leading agent in there. So you want to be really gentle and really friendly to your egg whites because you don't want to be really violent or brutal to it. Because you want it to rise beautifully, right? You want to have a beautiful cake that you can serve it to your friends and family. I'm doing this for my mom's birthday because she loves this cake. So I'm doing everything by hand, just for her. So we are almost done mixing our batter. It looks like it's ready. So I think I'm gonna stop here and grab my spring form pan. Look at this. I have an 8-inch spring form pan here. I covered it with parchment paper inside, and I wrapped the outside with aluminum foil. I use about 2 layers here. I use heavy-duty aluminum foil because you don't want any water seeping into your cake, and it's gonna ruin it. So use good quality aluminum. Don't use the cheap ones, because all the work that you put in and all the money that you spend buying the ingredients, totally worth it buying aluminum. That is a little bit expensive. And then we're just gonna pour in the batter and scrape off the sides. I'm gonna kind of tap the spring form pan lightly to get rid of any fake bubbles. So we have a nice cake.
So I'm gonna bake the cake with the pan and pour hot water about like 1 inch thick and bake it in a 300-degree oven for about 1 hour and 20 minutes. And after it's done baking, I'm gonna use a spatula and kind of just leave the door cracked open and stick a spatula like between the door and the oven and just let it slowly cool down in there, and it will minimize the shrinkage. If you bake the cake properly and your meringue is whipped up perfectly, you will have a beautiful cake that it's not gonna shrink. So I'm gonna get that going and I'll see you guys later.
After the cake has been done baking and you have finished all the shebang about leaving in the oven for about 30 minutes to let it completely cool down, although the cake is still warm, we can totally remove the parchment right now. And the top did not come out as pretty as I wanted. Like many other times I did this cake, the top came out perfect. Maybe the cake just hates me. That's why it wants me to have an ugly top to show in the video. But don't worry, I have kept other pictures of my other successful cakes, so I'm going to show you here. The method is all the same, but I don't know what happened today. Maybe it was especially cold today. That's why the cake kind of shrank a little bit on the top. But if you're doing it, I'm pretty sure you're going to get a perfect one. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. And look, the cake knows how to wobble.
I don't like it.